We've all been there, late night doom scrolling through social media, looking at endlessly similar shots, hearting only the best and the brightest, when all of a sudden, you stop, you actually click on a post to read the caption, and you zoom in on the images. That is exactly where I was just a few months ago when I stumbled upon a brand that I was completely unfamiliar with, Trematic, or Trematic as it's probably called. Apologize for the terrible American butchering. It was a photo of the watch that we're going to be looking at today, the Archive One 502 in black. The watch immediately stood out to me primarily due to its unique typeface, especially with the 4, 6, and 10 indices that really just gripped my attention. It is a watch that looked like an excellent blend of modern and vintage, but unlike so many other brands out there that try to execute in a similar fashion and ultimately kind of fall flat in my eyes, this particular piece drew me in further, so I started to dig in. Now for those that don't know, much like myself at the time, Trematic is a brand name with roots dating back to the 1950s before eventually fading into history due to the quartz crisis like so many other great brands that we don't know about today. Then, back in 2022, Daniele Compagnano acquired the name in an effort to relaunch it into the market to restore its former legacy. First launching with the YZ6, a watch you may have heard us mention on a previous Worn and Wound podcast, Trematic had a clear image of vintage modernity that they aimed to be a driving force for the brand's new relaunch. While that model leaned into the simpler side of things in terms of case architecture and finishing, allowing that grain-textured sector dial to really be the focal point, this 502 took things a step further and really looked to capture the visuals of, as they put it, the golden age of watchmaking. At first glance, the case shape may remind you of vintage dress pieces from the early 50s and 60s, and really that's the point. However, at 38mm in diameter, this case will wear slightly larger than most of its contemporaries, coming in around 36, meaning that it will be better suited for a modern audience and may potentially fit a wider range of wrists out there. At just under 11mm thick, the 502 can easily slide under the cuff, further aided by the overall curved architecture of the case shape. Looking down on it, the lugs do have a long visual appearance, though they measure in with a lug-to-lug of just 45.5mm, yet again taking advantage of that curve to really begin the wrap around the wrist and aid in a comfortable experience. When originally looking at the photos, I was slightly worried that with my large wrists, measuring around 7.67 inches, that the lugs might potentially dig into my skin, making it really unwearable. Though I'm happy to report that that is not the case at all, and oftentimes when I'm wearing it, I don't even notice that it's on. That being said, in the hand, the tips of the lugs are a little bit sharp if you're running your fingers over them, so watch out for that. Featuring fully polished finishing, the 502 will show signs of wear a bit more easily than others, though given its intended purpose, does well to dress the watch up a little bit. Now typically I would go in a little bit further, but I want to pause here and talk about the overall architecture of the case for just an extra moment. I mentioned that the lugs curve quite dramatically away from the case, casting a somewhat unique silhouette. They also each extend out from the rounded central case body, giving an almost modular appearance despite being a one-piece construction, a nice bit of visual design that you don't see from a lot of brands for the price point. But the really important thing that I want to bring your attention to is how the case is crafted. Those dramatically curved lugs sit really high on the case body, beginning just below that polished bezel, and slope away from the case towards the wrist. The effect? Well, when you look at it from the side, it means that most of the weight of the case is actually below the lugs, pressing that case back into the soft spot of your wrist and really wearing closer to your wrist and wearing thinner than you might expect it to be. Eventually, the lugs do stop just below the case back, giving the entire appearance of this watch to be more curved, and again just striking me as something different. It's an added level of attention to detail. Stepping back, the 502 comes well paired with a vegan leather strap somehow made from fruits, and is equipped with quick release spring bars and a nicely machined steel pin buckle. You might have guessed it by the way I spoke about the case's shape, but the wearing experience overall is excellent, appearing properly proportioned on a wide variety of wrists. Returning to the actual watch, a domed sapphire crystal treated with an anti-reflective coating on its underside does its best to cut down on glare, though does tend to capture a reflection in direct light situations. Just beneath, the dial, in what they call black, though does appear a bit more anthracite to me, holds the well-contrasting dial details just above its surface. Gold PVD polished applied indices manage the hours with unique Arabic numerals marking the even hours and faceted arrows marking the odd. Just inside that, a white printed minute track surrounds the minimal dial text and the central handset. Now personally, I like how this minute track looks. It adds just a little bit of detail and utility without overpowering the dial, though I'm sure some of you out there will call out that it is a bit on the smaller side, making it a little bit harder to read, which might cut down on overall legibility. At its center, faceted Dauphine hands handle time telling, with the hour hand contained inside of that minute track while the minute hand breaks the plane and extends out to the indices. This dial is completely void of lume, something that I personally appreciate as I truly don't believe watches of this ilk should have any lume applications to them. It would have completely ruined this dial. Now this is a bit of an odd case study for me, as I'm not typically a big fan of gold PVD coatings, here presenting a little bit more on the rose hue of things, but it works so well on this dial that I just find myself enamored with it. It leans really far into that vintage vibe, but in a really good way. And then there's that typeface, the real standout visual that I absolutely adore. I don't know why, but for some reason, the smushed, almost alien numerals just tug at my heartstrings. That was the first detail that I noticed and the last one that I found myself staring at while looking at it online. Powering the 502 is a Swiss-made automatic caliber SW200-1, a labor grade from Sellita, a 4Hz movement featuring hacking and hand winding, while offering an adequate power reserve of 41 hours, more than enough for most of us out there. It's a reliable workhorse movement offering ease of servicing, and at the price point has proven itself in countless other models. All in, I think Trematic is bringing a decent point of value here, with well-wearing dress watch dimensions, unique visuals, and details hinting at the past, all with a reliable movement for under $1,000. Now yes, there is a ton of competition out there for the price point, but I truly do believe that the Trematic 502 stands out in terms of visual design and overall comfort. But that's my opinion. Let me know down in the comment section what you think. Do you like this design? Do you like those numerals? Or are they a bit too funky for you? While you're down there, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help us out. And if you want to see more about this watch here or anything that we cover on this channel, head on over to warnermom.com, where I have an additional write-up and more photography for you to check out, as well as a ton of other articles that we are dropping every single day. But anyway, I know that your time is valuable and I really appreciate you spending some of it with me. So until the next one, peace.